afternoon, everyone. Okay, before I start, I want you to concentrate, and I don't want you nodding off. Because the story of union and its transition to employee ownership will have resonance to all those companies similar to ours whose owners are struggling with the prospect of succession planning, and to those lawyers, accountants, and consultants out there who really need to bone up on employee ownership as an option if they want to give their clients the best possible advice. Now, you all had a jolly good time last night, and you've had a very long day, and probably feeling a bit jaded by now. So, before I start, I want you to all get on your feet, now. Now, on your feet, on, quickly, quickly, quickly. Right, hands over your head, please, please, clap your hands, and a little wiggle. My name is Isabel Schofield, commonly known as Mrs. S, and I'm the chairman of Union Industries, a small but perfectly formed SME. To give you an idea of the type of company we are, I'll endeavour, in 5 minutes or so, to compress Union's progress over the last 44 years into 5 minutes or so. Here goes. 1972 was the year when my husband Paul, hereafter referred to as Mr. S, started out on his own. In reality, he had very, very little option, as the owner of the tarpaulin company, of which he was a director, absconded to South America, taking Barclays Bank to the cleaners, cleaning out all the loot and leaving his wife and family to fend for themselves. Mr. S swore he would never again work for anyone else. Like all young couples, of course, in those days, we enjoyed life and spent up to the hilt. So with a £50 overdraft and lots of optimism, Mr. S started Union Tarpaulins, repairing wagon sheets by sticking on latex patches. Union Industries, as it is now known, has come a long way since. 1973, I'll see if I can work this. Good. Business was doing well, and Mr. S was outgrowing the stone shed. He rented some space in an old brushworks. The building was a bit grim, as you can see, but we really thought it was a palace compared to the shed. We had the luxury of a sales office. Oh, God. We had the luxury of a sales office that doubled as a stock room. We had a much larger repair shop. Most important of all, we began to manufacture new tarpaulins and started to employ young lads to train. 1973, in a moment of rash romanticism, yes, madness some might say, Mr. S bought Ralph Elliker and Son, a rope and twine merchants and saddlers in the heart of York. Family run since 1795, but now very badly run down. He breathed new life into it by giving it a bit of a brush up and filled it to the gunnels with stock. 1974 onwards. Meanwhile, back at Leeds, new product manufacture was growing and started to focus on small runs of more specialized bespoke products. This continued for the next 15 years and became the backbone of the company. 1980, Union's first patented product. Wonderful. A 3-stage primary decontamination unit for asbestos abatement, chemical and nuclear protection. This was exported to most developed countries in the world. Around 1978, Mr. S had the bright idea that if you hung a tarpaulin up on some tracking, you would immediately make an industrial screen or curtain for heat retention, dust protection, and toxic containment. This became a very, very large part of the business, culminating in the manufacture of huge tensioned mobile systems, which were installed far and wide. The one on the left is one of 10 that are installed at Singapore Aerospace to the front of their hangars. And our second patented product on the right, which was the Auto Stack, an electrically operated curtain that retracted into the roof space. 1990. This really was a watershed year for Union. This was the year when Union Industries became an engineering company, with the development and manufacture of industrial high-speed doors for distribution centers, factories, warehouses, and food processing, whose unique selling point was a bottom beam crash out and auto reset, to protect the bottom beams from speeding forklift trucks. Forklift truck drivers are animals at times. It started with the Matador, and this was for internal doorways. We introduced the ram door, a big brute of a door, for very large openings in 1991. 1993, along came the Picador, a little baby, for small pedestrian doors and conveyor openings. 1995, Bulldor hit the scene, the reliable all-rounder and dependable workhorse that will go on working for millions and millions and millions of operating cycles and Union's #1 bestseller. 2002, the Eiger door was born, totally unique. The jewel in our crown, the first ever high-speed freezer door for industrial cold stores that actually worked, and Union's 3rd patent. 2007. So confident was Union in the reliability of its doors that it brought in a 25-year warranty, all parts and labor, absolutely unheard of in the high-speed door industry. High-speed industrial doors now account for around 8% of our turnover. Somewhere along the line, we bought that old brushworks we had rented all those years ago with 2 adjacent buildings and gave the whole lot a makeover. 2009, best of all, we now had a fully fledged, highly skilled and committed workforce whom we could rely upon to bring new ideas to fruition and maintain our reputation for innovation, quality, and sound engineering practice. So immersed were we in the excitement and challenges of developing a business that it never entered our heads that one day we'd drop off our perches because we were no longer spring chickens. And where would the company be then? This was a big problem. A succession plan was needed, but where the hell to start? A dilemma that many today might find themselves facing. About one thing we were sure: we had to put in place something that would protect Union, its unique brand, its reputation for service, and allow it to continue to innovate and expand. Most of all, we wanted to safeguard the workforce and guarantee its continued employment. Knowing no better, first of all, we tried all the traditional routes. MBIs and MBOs were totally out of the question. All those that we had come across never seemed to work, and many a worthy company had sunk without trace because of it. And then we thought, what about an employee benefit trust along the lines of the John Lewis Partnership? It works wonderfully for them and seemed to fit our wish list to perfection. So we called in the lawyers, accountants, and financial advisors to start the ball rolling. After a number of very unsatisfactory meetings, where each group seemed to be at loggerheads and have differences of opinion, we realized that no party was able to present a plan that exactly meshed with what we wanted to achieve. So having spent a whole dollop of dosh, we called a halt to any further waste of time and expenditure. Thinking that there's now no other alternative and feeling quite dejected, we unwillingly put the business on the market, employing one of those companies that are always writing with examples of previous successes. The one we chose was actually very good and produced a mass of potential purchasers from both trade and the vulture capitalists. We completed, I'm sorry, in joke. We compiled a short list and we met with all of them. We were astounded by some of the offers that were made, which were well in excess of the notional value of the company that had been calculated. Tempting as these were, we instinctively knew that none of them truly understand what we wanted for the company, and in the end, all were rejected. Now what to do? 100 grand the poorer, 2 years wasted, and no progress whatsoever. But, as luck would have it, while thumbing through the IOD magazine about this time, we came across an article on employee ownership and got a bit giddy, as this seemed to tick all our boxes. The Employee Ownership Association and Baxendale, a firm of EO consultants, were mentioned in the article, and we contacted them without delay. The EOA were immensely helpful, and Baxendale were brilliant impatiently guiding us through the various models we could consider and assisting us in formulating the best possible option for Union and, of course, ourselves. The rest is history. On the 27th of November 2014, Union became employee-owned. The new owners gave Mr. S and me a terrific send-off, and this red-letter day is celebrated each year by the company. I'm looking forward to the next, which is at the end of this week. There was just one tiny little wrinkle. And this was one upon which the whole success of transition hinged. We needed to appoint a new MD to replace me. It took a long, long time, but we were very lucky and in the end found the very best. You see a lot of smiling faces here. Almost 2 years since transition, are they still smiling? To answer that question, I will hand you over to Union's very own Tigger on Speed, as he is fondly known, Andrew Lane, to explain our particular EO model and how Union is performing under his leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Andrew Lane.
Thank you. Whew. Room full of people. I'm borderline terrified and I have no notes. What could possibly go wrong? Let's kick off then. Today's ramblings, I'm going to take you through the journey that Union Industries took through employee ownership, stepping off along the way at the deal that we made, the plan we created, and of course what you really want to know, did it work? Quick disclaimer, I do suffer from presentation Tourette's and hope I don't offend anybody this time. So, it's got to start somewhere, and it all starts with this. Who or what is this? Anybody? A what? Say what you see. Stakeholder. You see? It all starts with a stakeholder, and we needed to know who ours were. The owners at this point, and that's the charming couple right there. The employees, that motley crew, and the charming, handsome, and talented senior leadership team. That's those boys. Now, we didn't need external finance. If we did, they would absolutely be on here because they would have been a major stakeholder. We didn't. We had these three groups to aim for, and what we really wanted, what we desired, was that sweet spot that meets all of those stakeholders' wants and expectations. And to do that, we needed to have some form of a deal. So each of the stakeholders, what are they going to bring to the party and put on the table? Well, the former owners started with perhaps the most important thing, which was a realistic valuation. They didn't overvalue the business. In fact, they put it on the table for less than they had been offered in a trade sale. They also threw in the land and the buildings and all of the cash. They didn't take anything out. All that in return for a long-term, interest-free loan. That's a big commitment, and it was designed absolutely to give our business the very best start in life. The senior leadership team, they couldn't be trumped at this point, so they had to come up with something of their own. And the first thing was to give up the top secret director-only bonus scheme. You know, the kind of top secret scheme that everybody knows about, but we pretend they don't. Well, that had no place in our structure. And also a commitment to a fair and transparent management system where they, the directors, will be held accountable for their decisions and the actions that they took. And we add to that an absolute adoption of the leadership paradigm. And it's our brand of leadership, not necessarily for today's board only, but for generations to come, we haven't got any egocentric Yahoo, look at me, I'm the best individuals. We go for collective wisdom because we believe that none of us are as smart as all of us. The more people we involve in the decision-making process, the better that decision will be. And what we're trying to do here is to very visually turn our back on corporate greed. Employees. Now, this is what we wanted because we hadn't engaged them at this point. So this is kind of like our wish list, what we want the employees to bring to the table. Well, absolutely, we need them to commit to keeping the promises that the business makes to its customers and clients. Fairly fundamental. But also, more importantly for us, we wanted them to do that with their hearts and their minds. And you can't prescribe it, you can't mandate it, you can't demand it. You've got to earn that. So that's one of the things we set ourselves to do. And if we could do that, then the whole business would start to think and act like owners. That's where we're trying to get to. So that was the deal. We now needed to turn that into reality with a plan. And the plan starts with a structure. Owners own a company. Fairly straightforward stuff. We wanted to go for an employee ownership trust model. We felt we got a lot of advantage from that. And on transition day, the owners would sell all of their shares to the trust, not for anything as vulgar as money, but for a loan. And at that point, they would become former owners. Now, the trust didn't have any revenue-generating capability, so we were going to fund the repayments. And we could have left it there. There's nothing wrong with that model. Lots of people use it very effectively. But back to hearts and minds. We've got to win those hearts and minds. Imagine a welder. One of our welders is down the pub with his friends, and he's saying, you know, I'm a business owner because I am a beneficiary of an employee ownership trust by virtue of being a qualifying employee in the trading company. If he says that, he's going to be the one sitting in the corner, facing the wall on his own, like I have to most nights. Now, we wanted to make it tangible, so we created a SIP, and we did that so on transition day, everybody could get this. It's a share certificate. It says, I own a part of Union Industries. Everybody that was an employee then got one. Everybody that started since gets one on the anniversary of their employment. And it makes it real. That's what I like about it. If employees wish to buy shares, then they can, and that money goes back to the trust. Governance. It's not a commune. We have a board of directors, and they manage the business. But the trust is playing here too. It's an arm's length relationship, but it absolutely keeps a watching brief on the board. Are they delivering shareholder value to the employees? Also, more importantly, it has a cultural layer to the business. Are we performing as we said we would for the people? And if we don't do either of those things, then the trust absolutely will hold us to account. Oh, next. I forgot what's coming next, but now I know. Back to the hearts and minds of the employees. We've got a structure, we've got a method of governance, but we still haven't won people over. They still don't believe in what it is that we're trying to do. So we had lots and lots of meetings, small groups, and we went through the deal in some detail. We talked about the numbers, we talked about where the money would come from, how the business could afford it, what their rights and responsibilities would be of an employee owner, what they could expect from their business, and what their business would expect from them. And that was engagement. And we did it, and we did it, and we did it again until we were sure that everybody had got it. And when they had got it, and only then did we make that transition and went headlong into the next potential pitfall. A lot has happened on the run-up to transition day. Lots of meetings, lots of information. Then there was a party. And then the next day, everybody came back to the same place, they did the same job for the same money. And if we weren't careful, employee ownership would evaporate right then, disappear into the ether, and it would become something that happened back then to them. And we couldn't have that. We had to keep it on top of the agenda. So we absolutely choreographed the first 12 months. Starting with our transition day in November. It's union, so we followed that with a party. Early in the new year, we had another employee event. We all went out together, we ate together, we sat together, we talked together. We kept that sense of unity. And that filled the gap nicely to our year end in March. In March, where we... did I say shit? I do apologise. I got told about this, didn't I? So we had a financial update. Now, this isn't just numbers. This is about how what you do in your day job relates to the company, how well the company's performing. You've got to make it real. You've got to make people understand and realise how they affect the performance of the business. We also announced an employee ownership bonus, which we paid in the May. Following in the June, second financial update, the stuff we said we'd do in March, did we do it? Did it work? If it didn't work, what are we going to do differently? I'm speeding up now. In August, we had our second company event. By this time, we had a council. The council decided what we were going to do, an employee council, and organised it. And it was brilliant. Best one yet, and they did it. September sees our AGM and a further financial update. And at this point, because we've got to be accountable as directors, one of us has to stand down and hope to be re-elected by the employees. That is what's called an arse-clenching moment. I can tell you from experience because it was me, and thankfully they took me on, but that, in a blink of an eye, we're back to transition day and another party. Keeping it real meant that the company became self-aware. It started to run itself. We were guiders, no longer managers, but sort of keeping it on the tracks. Really important. Now, results, very quickly. Here's our pre-tax profit. Can't be one. Pre-tax profit line before transition. That was our transition day. Was that increase down to EO? Don't know. Oops, back. You didn't see that. Did we do better or worse the next year? We did better, much, much better. 400% better. Big bar that for the first year, but we're halfway through the second year and we're up. We're up again by 25%, so I shouldn't have worried. And it's not just about numbers though, is it? Remember that cultural thing? We talked about hitting that sweet spot for the stakeholders. Well, did we do it? Only way to find out, ask them. So I did. Former owners, I won't read you all of this, but what they are saying is they are vindicated in using employee ownership as a model. The senior leadership team, it's a joy. Leading is an absolute joy, and the employees say this. And I didn't even have to write this, they did it themselves. And they talk about the responsibility coming before sharing in the rewards. What does all this mean? It means this. Successful business and ethical business can be the same thing. They are not mutually exclusive. And a final thought. Does employee ownership work for union? For me, it's an absolute yes.
It's a yes for me.
There's your answer. Thank you very much.